What's the most expensive investment or the largest investment that you made into either marketing or advertising?
From a realtor's perspective, right? So I am a licensed realtor as well. I don't practice because God love realtors. Like, they have a really hard job.
I'm starting an online business, but I can't computer. Like, what?
Hi.
Hi.
And welcome to another episode of Fuck Your Podcast. I'm Emma Pardo.
And I'm Katy Martin. And on today's episode, we have a special guest host, Ms. Crystal Anderson. Say hi, Crystal.
Oh, hi.
So we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today, but Crystal, I've known for a really long time. So business mentor, entrepreneur, family member, and moving on to you got a lot of stuff going on. But we met originally just through family, obviously, but in the roofing industry. So for people who don't know who you are, tell a little bit about your story and how you got from where you started versus where you are now.
I started in the roofing industry back in 2001. So the home services sector. Before that, I was a mom and a bartender. So, came a long way from like where I started. And, it was just every day trying to like become a better person, better version of myself. So just worked through the construction industry as a salesperson. Show my age a little bit. I found a job in the newspaper. Started doing sales in the construction industry and just really fell in love with being able to help people and put their homes back together after a leak or a storm or something. And from there, started my own business in 2007, which is when Katy and I started working together. And from there, just continued to grow business and exited a business in 2018. And now I help other business owners either correct their distressed business or figure out how to exit gracefully. So it's everything from A to Z, from business, from financials to marketing. Large background in the marketing side. I've learned a lot of hard lessons along the way. So
awesome. Well, and speaking of marketing, because obviously we talk about marketing a lot on podcasts since that's what we do. Like, it's funny, all the people that are getting into the roofing industry now versus when we got into the roofing industry, how different marketing is. Like, I mean, it's like light years different compared to where we started. So like, I tell people sometimes like of the marketing strategies we used to use when, 2008, compared to like what you do now, it's like night and day.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. Talking about like, I've told this story to other people before, but obviously Yellow Pages,
right?
Like, you think 23 years ago, or not even that long ago, I guess that would have been like 13, 14 years ago. It's like the Yellow Pages was like the only form of marketing. Like, people didn't even have websites at the time. Like, having an email address was like crazy. Nobody had business domain emails for sure. It was like a Gmail. I don't even know what that Gmail account was anymore. Yeah. But, now you get like these fancy cards in the mail from service contractors that are like, let me help you with your AC or your roof or whatever. We were literally printing them out on cardstock, like 4 little bitty index cards, cutting them with a paper cutter. So it's funny. I didn't even think about that till you just said, what marketing looked like. Like, people got that in the mail and they didn't think anything different.
Right.
And they actually responded to it. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. Now, like, if it's not a high gloss, fancy, great big huge postcard, people won't even send it out.
Yeah, it's just crazy how, and also what it costs, like if you think of what you pay for now, like in digital marketing. So, roofing companies now focus on where their website ranks, in Google. And back then where do I show up in the Yellow Pages? Where do I show up in the business listings? And it's funny because the first iteration of the company that we worked together, like originally you're like, honestly, it was higher in the alphabet. So I knew people would see me first. And just like little things like that it's kind of funny to, just
I'm over here because I'm in limbo, right? I think I vaguely, like, if I could go back and remember my childhood.
Have you ever seen a phone book, Emma?
Yes, I have. And I was very young, very, very young. And then those are pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
Well, there's there's like, it's interesting, Emma, that you talk about that, because there's like, even like where we're sitting now, like there's still that middle ground, right? Like you have your baby boomers that half of them don't even know how to use a computer. And if they do, they're like, oh, let me find it on my phone. And they don't pay attention. They just click on whatever comes up first. And, so trying to market in this age is very interesting, because it's like you have people like you, Emma, that like don't even really remember the phone book. You had the phone book era where everybody used that. Like I remember carrying one in the back seat of my car. Like you didn't have the option to look stuff up on your phone, right? And then the baby boomers still want to use some of that old technology. So there was like a period of time where Google didn't really work either, because you had such an intermittent, and especially in the home service industry, right? Like you have to think about the age group of the people that own homes that actually need services done. So even though the marketing world had shifted for a lot of industries to completely digital, I think home services was a little slower to catch on, because there wasn't so many people looking for it. But it really put home service companies at a disadvantage if you were smaller. Like even if you had a big budget back then, you knew what it was, right? Print ad was print ad. Like you just knew that that was your budget for a 12 to 18 month period. And that's what you paid. And then today, to even stay relevant with digital marketing, you have to figure out what that spot looks like from a budgetary standpoint, and if you can even afford to play in that arena, because Google ads are expensive. Social media takes a lot of extra time. Like print ad, you met with your person, came up with your design, figured out if you wanted a 1-page or a 2-page. That's it. So now there's like a lot of things to really think about when you're trying to build your business in home service sector.
Right. And I've noticed, sorry, Katy.
No, go ahead.
Noticed with working with some of these home service companies, especially the clients that are older or revert back to, I don't want to say older, because it's not like we have anybody that's old. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was lack of a better word, but like the more traditional or early 2000s way of doing things. And they, with something like that, it's a set and forget kind of thing. You set up what you need to, you put your information out there, and people will call you if they see, whatever they see in the phone book. But with social media, you can set it and forget it, but it's not going to perform very well. Like you have to, we go through all of our ads and all of our social media, and it's constantly looking at things, constantly engaging, constantly optimizing. And that's crazy how far that's come.
Yeah. And that's a lot for a business owner to learn if they didn't come from that world, because if you've been in business for a really long time and you are, like you said, some people are just accustomed to, I had an account manager, they handled all that stuff. I just basically approved an ad, ad copy, an ad design, but then it's like, oh, well, I have a Facebook page. It should start magically do something and like doing something. And they don't realize, no, that's constant contact. Like that's constant ad copy, that's constant post copy, that's constant posts. And so now, like the digital world, I don't even know, like when's the last time you looked at any kind of like traditional advertising, like yellow page, billboard, or radio? Like, because those were 3 pretty big in the home service industry that were pretty expensive.
Yeah. So, we did radio as well. But we learned some really hard lessons with that as too. Honestly, I can't tell you the last time. I take that back. I looked at a phone book the other day, and it wasn't because I was looking for a service company to use or somebody to, like a lawyer or whomever. I was actually using the phone book to find companies that I could buy, because that means they're that far behind the times.
Right.
So if they're still advertising in the phone book, what are their marketing methods? And do they need to look at either transitioning their company to be able to have higher revenues, or do they need to look at possibly exiting their company?
Yeah.
So that's the last time I picked up a phone book.
So right now, like with the business that you have is primarily focused on digital and networking. So, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But one thing I did want, like so back in the day, like obviously even in 2008, I remember working on the first website, and then there were other iterations of the website. But back when you ran a pretty big roofing company, you did a lot of traditional advertising in combination with digital stuff as well. What's the most expensive investment, or the largest investment that you made into either marketing or advertising?
Oh my God, I would say websites.
Really?
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know, especially when
Mhm.
there's a new era of marketing coming in and all you hear is, your website. You have to have a website. You have to have a website. Well, nobody really told you why you had to have a website, right? They
Or
just
what it
told
was
you you
supposed to
had.
do.
Yeah. So then you would build one and somebody would come in behind them and go, oh, that one's not good enough. We need to update it. Oh, we need to change that. And to build a website, even in 2010, was extremely expensive.
Mhm.
And now we obviously know there are easier ways, depending on the size of the company, to do website. And, obviously the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. But
Right.
back then it was just really like no one knew. And they just said you had to have one. And
Right.
then you just kept going from there. And everybody told you it needed to be better. So you kept doing all this stuff. And then SEO, right? Everyone tells you, oh, invest in search engine optimization and grow organically. And then people come in and tell you, well, you have to do paid ads. So like, I would say website was the most expensive because everything always came back around. Your website has to perform. Like that's
Mhm.
all you ever heard. And you
Whoops.
still hear, maybe not so much now, but performance of your website. And then they want to sell you one small package and then another one, and another one, another one. And it gets expensive.
I can imagine I mean, if you did compare website to even a lot of agencies, like even with what we do, we charge a fraction of the price that I've seen what people have paid for websites several years ago. And some of that is like technology improves, and as it becomes more efficient, it becomes cheaper. And so like I can see that, but that's like we were talking about this on another podcast with like making movies. It's kind of the same thing. Like CGI is starting to get cheaper because the technology is becoming more efficient. And the same thing with digital marketing. And you would say that even like, is that because of the updating of the websites that you feel like that's where you spent the most money, like in comparison to like your radio advertising, or we never did television, right?
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
We did do some TV. Yeah. That didn't bear much
See,
fruit.
and that's
right.
so crazy for small businesses to do TV ads to me
Yeah.
these days, is just because I don't have
Right.
cable.
I don't even see
I
local commercials. Like I
No,
don't
I
even
don't
watch it.
see. I think the one that's on Hulu the most isn't it like Applebee's or something random.
Yeah.
Like just I mean, it's bigger, obviously.
Mhm.
Applebee's are everywhere, but yeah, you don't see very, even with like YouTube and stuff that's spammed with ads, or
Right.
any of the apps on your phone. Nothing is local. It's all these big
Yeah, it's
time
all big.
companies.
Yeah.
You can do local advertising on YouTube, but like, yeah, it's kind of right now, the baby boomers are getting older, which 10, 15 years ago, that was your largest customer base because they were the people who were still living in a home. And now you have millennials who half of the older millennials have houses, the other half can't afford it. And so that whole dynamic's going to change. If you don't get in front of the right people, like you're not going to get in front of the right people. Half the people you could get in front of might be renters, if they don't own the property. So that's
Well,
why
that's
like
also
digital
what's
methods are going to be more
crazy
effective.
in the roofing industry is the amount of people that rent. I mean, a house is a house; it still needs to be taken care of.
Right.
But we had so many people at our other house that we rent this house too. But the last house, it was every day we had somebody with some roofing company trying to sell us something. We're like, your door knocking is doing nothing because we can't make that call.
Right.
Either way.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine being a door to door type person in today's world, like with
Right.
everybody having doorbell cams and like, somebody knocks on my door, I work from home, but I look at my phone before I even go downstairs to see who it is.
I'm the same exact way. And
Yeah.
it's so bad when we've taught the 5-year-olds, do not go in a visible window if you hear the door, just duck and cover. Like we don't even look, because he used to be so excited. When I first moved to Texas, it was like he would open the door for anybody. We were like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Like, don't do that.
Whoa. I mean, that goes for anybody's kids these days, but like
It's true.
specifically, we're like, do not go in front of the door, hide.
Right.
Don't even look until we say it's okay.
Well, we had to do that. I had to remind Justin of that. The doorbell camera went off, and I'm the only one that has it on my phone. So he got up and like was gonna go upstairs. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, we didn't even see who it is. Like, you don't have to answer the door. Like, it's kind of the whole point. When you work at home, you have the doorbell camera. So if someone rings your doorbell, you don't have to stop what you're doing. You can just be like, hey, we're not home. Like, go away. But for the most, I mean, being that we came from an industry that had door to door, I'm still empathetic to you know, salespeople. I'll still talk to some of them, but yeah, it's totally different. That's why, God, we talked about it the other day as far as on the recruiting side of things. Like, I would hate to be the person that was recruiting for a company and like place somebody with a company, and then God forbid they go out and it's door to door, and then like something bad happens, you know, like, because you never know. The people who you've had that happen in Texas, where roofing salespeople right after a storm have gotten guns pulled on them. It's happened in Florida after the hurricane. So it's just like that whole method of marketing has got to get up to speed, you know, get with the times. And I think a lot of people are doing it, but they know that it's like the path to least resistance. It's like, if all of these things don't work, I can still go knock doors. So I guess it's good that you have a last resort, or some people it's their first resort and they're trying to get out of that habit. But it's still, like, to me, it's more of a safety thing at this point. It's just not the same world anymore.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
You know, and it's interesting, you circling back to what you were talking about earlier with the digital piece, right?
Right.
Like, there's so many other ways to reach people.
Mhm.
And, you know, I've heard it called digital door knocking. So, you know, for the people that are in the door knocking industry, it's like contacting people through the social channels and, you know, being able to identify them based on geofencing and like all of this technology that's available. Why do you even have to go knock on doors?
Right.
Like, you know, and I get it. Small companies, path of least resistance, right? You just go directly to the person that you think is going to have your services. But it also doesn't create rebranding of your company because they're not seeing you over and over and over again.
Mhm.
So taking those people in your marketplace to be able to identify your brand versus just one person knocking on the door. So
Yep. And so other ways, so to the flip side of this, and I don't know, it could be just because I'm not as savvy to it as what you are. The one thing that, as long as we've worked together, regardless of the company or the project or whatever, like, you were the person that I could always get the best perspective from, of like an out of the box like concept, where you saw marketing as, okay, that's great, we could do this, but what if you narrowed that search? What if we expanded this particular task? Like, there was always a more inventive, creative angle to some of the marketing, even if it was like hands-on, you know, if it was a mailer, if it was something digital and automated, like, you always had the best, like, out of the box ideas to generate customers and to generate referrals. So that's always been super fun, you know, to be a part of. And like, some of that you do now with the networking side of things, because a lot of people are like, nah, no, I you know, networking group, I'm not part of a networking group. I'm telling you, like, just the last 3 months I've been in a networking group's been a game changer. And it's just all about how you can connect with people. What are your thoughts on that? Or like some of the most things that you've done that have been like the most fun or most rewarding in either marketing or networking?
Well, I would say that the most rewarding thing would be building relationships. So like, you think of like networking, the networking is just introducing you to someone that you've never met before.
Mhm.
And, you know, the real work happens when you're creating the relationship, because
Right.
people refer people that they like, or
Mhm.
that they know is going to do a good job. So it's, you know, networking is about the relationship, and then keeping those people that you've met through the years and constantly like re-engaging with them. I think a lot of people go and they get like 10 cards, right? Like, I'm going to go to a networking event and I'm going to meet 10 people. I'm going to get their cards. And then what do they do with them? They throw them
Yeah.
up,
If you don't do anything with it.
yeah. So, you know, it's better to get one card or two cards or meet one or two people than it is to go around and like try and meet 10 or 15 people.
Mhm.
And, you know, none of those stick because they don't even really know who you are.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I would say that networking is a great opportunity, finding a very niche group of people to be in. And then depending on what service industry you're in, if you're like kitchens and baths or home design, being part of the Home Builders Association is a good one, because people look to the Home Builders Association for trust. Usually the contractors that are there are very educated. And then just, I think the biggest one that we use right now is, again, relationships, but it's the relationships of referral partners. So,
Mhm.
you know, for us, like, real estate agents have become a very big repeat offender. No, just kidding. But they call, right? Like, they
Right.
have pervy information to people that need new roofs, or they're under inspection deadlines or whatever. So like, when you become their go-to, they just keep calling you, and they'll call the contractor that they've done business with for years until he screws up.
Right.
She screws up. So as long as they're available and they do a good job and they treat the clients well, then they'll forever be they'll forever be working with you as long as they're in the industry.
Right. Talk about, so I don't know if it was something that you coined, but I know it's the first time I had heard it when we started working on the project together, but you've talked about in the roofing industry, power partners. Like what do you see the difference between power partners versus your referral partners?
So power partners are really the referral partners that have very similar type of clientele or people that would need your services as equally as theirs. So thinking of like for our industry in roofing, power partners would be a real estate agent, a home inspector, a solar company, tree trimmers, like anybody that would have pervy information to what we do, where they understand how we can service our client and how it would benefit them as well as us. So, and then being able to return the favor, right? So we'll call it a tree service company. Like we're going to call them when somebody calls us because they had a tree fall in their house. But we want to work together. We want to be power partners and refer business back and forth to each other. So those power partners are people that you can work simultaneously with. They can benefit from you or you can benefit from them, but they are also people that have service sectors that are similar to yours where your services are needed.
And I think like the biggest distinction, because you can get people that send you referrals. And I've also seen roofing companies where they don't really develop a relationship and kind of a process and an understanding with a real estate agent. And they start kind of using them for, estimates that never go anywhere or inspections that really never go anywhere. So I think the distinction between somebody who sends you referrals versus someone who's more of a power partner is that the power partners already kind of pre-qualified the lead or the referral, and sometimes even pre-sold it. Because if you get someone who works with, like let's say your referral partner is a solar company and they don't do anything roofing related, they're going to say, hey, we can't put solar on your house unless your roof's replaced, and here's who we use to do that. So it's darn near a guaranteed job. Like it takes out, so that's that whole thing of talk about scalability. If you have 5 or 6 people total, like it doesn't even have to be a ton of people, but if you where you position your company in a partnership or with somebody like that, you don't really need a ton of those to have consistent job flow, because they're not just leads, they're not just referrals, they're teetering on being sold jobs.
Yeah. Very hot opportunities is what I call them.
Yeah.
So they're pre-sold for you. By the time they get to you, that person basically already knows they need your service. It's just a matter of how much is it going to cost me.
Yep. And I think the thing that there's only so many roofing companies that really do it well when it comes to working with real estate agents, because you've got to learn some of the nuances to their sales process and how you can bring value to that. But once you create that relationship, they're just going to continue referring you because you're making their job easier and it's solving the problem, that either the buyer or the seller has. Yeah, that's always been a fascinating angle. Some people just don't pay attention to it enough, and it could be really beneficial.
Yeah, it's understanding the need of the realtor, right? Like it's not about us, it's about them. Like they're being paid commission based on how well they allow the transaction to go through. What did they do? Like from a realtor's perspective, right? So I am a licensed realtor as well. I don't practice because God love realtors. Like they have a really hard job. They're under deadlines all the time, but they're literally like a liaison for the entire process, buyer, seller. And then they do volunteer work until it closes. Like at the end of the day, think about it. They don't get paid commission until everything is done and at the closing table. So every piece of work that they do from the time that the property goes under contract through inspection period, contacting a contractor for an estimate, trying to get somebody out there to do the necessary repairs, all the way to the closing table, they are volunteering their time, because if that deal falls through, they lose the deal and they lose their commission. So I truly believe like part of our success in working with realtors is understanding their pain point, right? Like they're under deadlines. they have certain things that they have to do. And then they're also dealing with emotion. So people that are buying and selling, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it, which then puts undue stress on them. So if you have a contractor in any of the sectors, right, whether it be foundations or HVAC or whatever, right, any of those, if they can understand the pain points that that realtor has, and trust me, there are some days that they'll call 10 times and I'm like, oh my God, stop calling. But understanding they're under really high pressure to get this to the finish line. And if they don't have good people in their corner, it could kill the deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And just being very like somebody else who cares and is very conscious of that. That's very important. So the relationships like you've built and the referral partners that you have, it's the thing that I think, well, one, you can obviously see the success that you've had in that is due to the fact of either you or Tim really developing that relationship, understanding those things, understanding the inner workings, which now kind of moving on to what you're doing, like not being in the day-to-day of a roofing company, but looking at the companies that you've been helping more on consulting and investing. Kind of share with us a little bit about what that looks like and what you're currently doing on that side now.
Right. So, stepping away from the day-to-day, obviously continuing to keep the marketing machine going, but doing mergers, acquisitions, helping distressed business owners. I've been there. Like there is nothing worse than feeling like all you can do, we're talking about marketing, but the reality of it is that sometimes companies get into trouble because of marketing. Like they keep taxing themselves, make more sales, push more revenue, and they just keep pushing, and they throw all this money at marketing. But then they turn around 18 months later and they went, oh crap, like what just happened? And now they've put themselves into a tailspin. Their cash flow is low. Their marketing is working a little bit, but it's not working as effective as they would have hoped for the budget that they had allocated.
Right.
And they get themselves into a financial position. And then the owners, they start getting burnt out, right? I use the phrase, you're either fired up or fizzled out. After you just keep running towards the finish line, above my head says no finish line. So there is no finish line. You just have to keep going. But a lot of them are like, I just got to get there. I just got to get there. I just got to get there. And what they don't realize is that finish line keeps moving.
Right.
So it's like the closer you get, the further away it gets from you. And companies get in trouble that way. So what I'm doing now is helping companies by either partnering with them to alleviate some of that stress so that we can look at it from a financial position, determine how they could increase their cash flow, decrease their expenses. Small to medium-sized business owners, especially in the service industry, I would say about 60 to 70% of them are coming in because they started in the industry and they don't necessarily know how to run a business. They see what they saw when they were doing it, but they didn't realize before they got in, oh, you have to start monitoring insurance and what that costs and what your marketing budget is, like all of these things that go into it. And then they find themselves just completely burned out. So being able to go in and identify where some of those pitfalls are, all the way down to, the $99 subscription that they've been paying for the last 5 years that they don't even know what it goes to because their bookkeeper just enters everything into QuickBooks. Like nobody ever stops and actually looks at the financials, and then the other thing is you have 11,000 baby boomers that are wanting to retire every single day, or that are retiring every single day. And there's a lot of businesses that are, either going up for sale with brokers that are sitting, or they're just closing the doors.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of businesses after you hear this, you'll start realizing it really quickly. You'll be talking to somebody, you'll be like, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh yeah, I used to go to this store down the street and they just closed, and ask why did they close? Well, because their kids didn't want to take it over and they couldn't find anybody to buy it.
Yep.
Because 1 in 26 businesses will sell on internet, like through broker. So the likelihood of positioning your business to sell is slim from that perspective. But if you can position your business where you can find someone like myself or, other people that work in the mergers and acquisitions side of things that want bolt-ons for their existing company. Right now, we're looking at potentially acquiring like gutter cover companies. Guttering, we already do guttering, but people have a huge need for like gutter covers.
Right.
So tapping into that market, windows and doors, garage doors. And again, you're able to grow a business bigger by having more services to offer. But the question that I stopped and asked myself, and how I determined this was the direction I was going to go, what's the barrier point of entry? And the barrier point of entry is the cost, right? Like I have two ways of going about this. I can try and figure it out. It's going to cost me an arm load because I'm like trying to figure out the marketing for that industry, and I'm trying to figure out what's needed and how to buy product and where to get discounts and all the stuff. Or I can go into a business that is very parallel to what we're already doing and identify where it needs to be tweaked, but they already have the client base. They already have the marketing set up. It just all needs to be fine-tuned.
Well, and I think a lot of people too don't realize that there's so many variations, quote unquote, of selling your business. Like they don't see that some people are like, well, I wouldn't sell my business or I wouldn't take on a partner, but there's so many different ways to arrange that. I don't think they realize the opportunity. It's like, if you had somebody that either has A, the knowledge, or B, the capital, that can come in, and sometimes it's both, sometimes it's one or the other, and sometimes it's temporary. And I think, again, like you talked about, a lot of people get into a particular industry or they open a business because either the product or the service is something they know about, but not understanding the bigger picture of running a business. Then you start looking at things like mergers and acquisitions. I guarantee you probably scares half the people that would hear that. And because they're like, where do you even start with that? And sometimes it doesn't have to be as a partnership, a buyout, or an exit strategy can sometimes be simpler than you think. And it can be beneficial.
Yeah. So as an example, I just talked with a gentleman a couple of days ago, and, we sparked up a conversation through social media. And we jumped on a call, and he's like, yeah, I'm looking at, retiring over the next couple of years. And, I just kind of wanted to see what was out there. And so we got into a conversation, and what I realized is that his business needed significant accounting help, and it needed a lot of marketing strategy put in place. Like he's older, just kind of fell by the wayside, and he just did things the old way, just like we were talking about earlier. Like they just did it the way they always did it. The guy's doing well, like he's bringing in a good number of revenue for the amount of marketing strategy he's doing. But if he was to try and sell his business today or retire, leave it to his children, whatever, like there are still things that need to be fixed. And, most people are like, oh my God, I don't want to partner. Well, we're not true partners, right? Like we're not coming in. Like I used to always use the phrase, a partnership's a sinking ship. And, I always use that because it's like, usually you have two people that are butting heads that just can't get along because they both have a power struggle. But when you have a person that's been doing this for so long and they love what they do and they truly want to leave a legacy, whether it be for the employees that they have, that they don't want to lose their jobs, so they continue to keep working and not retiring because they're like, what's going to happen to them? Building it up so that their kids can take it over. Whatever the case may be, is bringing somebody in that actually has as much passion for the business as you do. And they can look at it from the 30,000 foot view, where you've been in the weeds for so long that you can't see it any differently than it currently is. And that's why things have never changed. That's why you're still operating from the same processes that you were before. So, looking at a merger or an acquisition doesn't have to always be scary, because there's a lot of people like myself that it's funny, roofing, I got into it because it's about the people, but now I'm just taking it to a much bigger scale, right? Like it's the business owners that serve the people that I want to help, because if those businesses aren't there, they're not going to serve the people inside the community. So having a partner, is really like having a mentor that really wants to see your business flourish to the next level, whether you're there or you're just creating the legacy to pass on to your employees.
I love that.
Well, Crystal, it's been very interesting to sit here and learn about, from both of you, actually. I'm just a baby over here, but to kind of switch to more personal things so people can understand who you are as a person. Obviously you're an entrepreneur, but what do you do when you're not working? What do you do for fun? What do you do to relax? What do you do to step away from the business every once in a while?
So I work out, that's probably the biggest stress reliever. It's like some people are like, it's a hobby, or, for me, if I don't do it, my day starts off horrible.
Rough.
Coffee all day, energy. So I make sure that I work out at least 5 days a week, go to the gym, go for a walk, whatever the case may be. We love boating. So anything water, like I don't care if it's the beach in Florida. I don't care if it's the lake. Like if there's water, I'm in my happy place. Like you could literally like put me on a beach in a cardboard box for a week on vacation and I wouldn't care.
I love it. Yeah, I need that in my life. Cole and I were actually going to go. His mom invited us to Maui next week, and we were going to go until we saw like is it hurricane or tropical storm Dora that's like hitting there right now, and the wildfires. We're like, maybe we sit this one out. But I was looking forward to water time for sure. I don't get that right now, but it is
Well,
what
it's
it is.
hurricane season, so
Yeah, sometimes you just need to like find a lake you can hang out to because Florida can even be hit and miss. You
Well,
go
like the
down there,
closest
it's red tide.
Well, the closest water to us is Galveston. Well, maybe not the closest water, but like coastal is Galveston.
Yeah,
We're 2 hours
coastal.
from Galveston, and they're like under E. coli
Oh
warning.
Lord, yeah. See,
yeah.
So we're like, maybe we
ocean-
just stay home.
the ocean's
Like,
scary.
the ocean's scary, but I do love the water too.
We bring on a guest and we just talk about like what's one thing that's triggered you in like the last week. We call it "This is what really grinds our gears." I've had mine that I've been waiting to talk about.
Oh, let's hear it. Katy, I can
Oh
see
my
as
God.
part of me senses you're on edge about this. And I don't know what it is, but
I
I'm
have
ready to
been
hear
for
it.
like 4 days. Okay, so
What is it?
people under the age of let's say 45 who are completely honestly no, if you're under the age of 50 that are completely computer illiterate, but they think it's cute. They think it's like a cute personality trait. And I have talked to 4 people in the last 2 weeks of range of ages where they're like, "Oh, I don't do that." What do you mean you don't do? What do you do for a living? Like, what do you do for a living? I've talked to 2 people who are like, "I'm starting an online business, but I can't computer." Like, what? Excuse me?
Are you sure
And
this
then,
is for you, ma'am?
oh, maybe a
But
new
okay, hold on.
career choice?
Here's the question that I have for you over this. Like, what do you think in this day and age is an appropriate age for people to be computer illiterate with the times?
Or do you mean like
Like, what is the
scaling
like
age?
if they are older than this, then it's acceptable. But if they're younger
I
than
would say
this,
if they're
they
older
should
than
know.
if they're older than 50, but honestly, between the ages of like 50 and 55, you still have a decent amount of like I honestly at this stage with as old as I am and how computer savvy I am and everything that all of us do, being incredibly tech savvy, I would say you almost have to be like 60. Like if you were in your 60s or 70s and you're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." I'd be like, "Okay, cool. I'll help you do that." Like, but if you come
Understandable.
to me and you're like 36 and you're like, "Oh, I just don't really know how to use a computer." I'm like, "You went to school. They probably handed you one in kindergarten. Like, what do you mean? Like
Yeah.
that you can't do that?" I think what triggers me more about it is that the specific people that I've talked to and have said that, it's just like, "Oh, it's cute." No, that's not cute. Like someone's going to have to do something for you all the time. Like and they're in an industry or they're in a business where it's required. And I'm like,
How did you get hired? Who
how
do you know? What are your
Right.
connections?
Yeah, exactly. What voodoo
But like,
did you cast on the hiring manager at wherever it is you work?
I think the thing that would piss me off the most, though, like it's one thing to be like, oh, I don't know how to do that, but it's another thing to be in an industry that needs that type
Right.
of skill.
Yeah.
Acting cute, thinking you're going to fly below the radar. At some point, at first it might slide, but at some point you're going to be that annoying employee.
Right.
That
Or the annoying
everybody.
coworker. So
Right.
that's just something that has come up. And I know that we've talked about it before because the last place that we worked, there were 2 girls in particular who did that shit. And we were like, "What? What do you mean?" Like, "Oh, I'm just trying to brush up on my computer skills." I'm like,
Wait, where you
"Okay,
and I worked?
yeah." I'm like, "Okay, grandma, you're 30. Like, give me a break." What's something that's triggered either one of you in the last week?
I'll have to think about mine. Actually, no. People in your life that you can call and they won't answer, but the second they call you, you answer. And the only reason they're calling you is because they need something,
Oh,
if that makes sense. So if I were to call somebody and they don't answer, okay, I don't like really think that deep into it, but I do catch on to when they call the next time that they call me, it's only because they need something.
because
And
they never talk on the phone or
no, they just
You have two different kinds of offenders in that area. You have people who are, I don't understand why you're calling me when you can just text me kind of people, or they ignore your calls because they ignore everybody's calls, or they just ignoring your calls.
I have no idea. I try not to take it personal. Don't make me think that hard.
No.
I'll spiral.
Okay. No, I'm not trying to make you take it personal, but I'm just thinking of like the situation.
No, I don't take it personal, but I do notice when people call me only when like it's starting to add up, and I'm like, oh, I only hear from you when you need something. And it's interesting. But what else was I gonna say on top of that? I think what's crazy is that people my age don't like to do phone calls at all. Like they get anxiety about anybody calling. You know,
not wanting to be on the phone.
Cole and his friends, we're all the same age. We're all 25, and they don't talk on the phone at all. If they want to hang out, they'll text, and Cole will be like, oh, they haven't responded yet. I'm like, if I want to hang out with somebody, I'll call them and say, hey, come over.
Right.
It's just an easier, faster way to communicate. I don't get why we got to sit and wait for somebody's text. I don't know. Anyway, I digress.
There's always something.
Crystal,
what about you?
Yeah, what's grinding your gears these days?
What's grinding my gear? Probably just people that don't think. Like it, you talk about computers, Katy. It's like they just can't go that next step. And it's not because they can't, it's just because they choose to not even think to go there. Right. It's like we all carry a phone around in our pockets, and it's a mini computer, but yet somebody goes, I don't know how to do that.
Right.
Have you heard of Google? Have you heard of YouTube? Like, my favorite phrase is hashtag Google it. Because when someone goes, I'm not really sure what that means. Well, you have the biggest dictionary encyclopedia in your pocket. Like, go put the search term in and find out what that means.
Yeah. Like, so it's more of like the forward thinking, like, come on, just take it. Just come on, just take it the next step.
Right. But what's so crazy is that we only notice like the people that do think. Have you ever been able to like spot somebody that's getting ready to not think? Like you anticipate it. You know what I mean? Like you're sitting there, you're thinking
have that
of
imaginary
what you would do.
Bubble above their head that like all of a sudden it's like that thinking bubble that doesn't.
But you can anticipate when they don't think, and you're
just
like,
has the 3 dots in it, like your iMessage. It just never goes anywhere.
Right, exactly. I can't stand, because then I like cringe at those people like internally. It's just like, really? Nothing came. No, you're not gonna. Okay. It's like they don't use their phone, they don't use their brain, resources, right?
I could expect that from somebody older, like if you get a phone call from I'm sure Justin's mom's done that before, where she call us and ask us a question that we're like, what? I mean, you could have Googled it just like I could have Googled it. like something simple. Like I could get that from somebody who was like of a generation where you didn't have that kind of instant access, where we've had it for a really long time and use it all the time. But it's crazy. I do see that though, and sometimes in younger generations, and I try to give, no offense, Emma, but like if somebody's new to something, I can at least like kind of expect it to a degree, but it's just like, okay, take it one more step. Just take it one more step. And I'm sure you can figure it out. And I'm not saying that, Emma, like you do that, but I see that when somebody, I can tolerate it when someone's new, because there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Ignorance is just, you don't know. So I have patience for ignorance. I can correct ignorance. If you didn't know this and now I've told you, you now know it. You're not ignorant to it anymore.
Ignorance is temporary. Stupidity's forever.
Stupidity's forever. And it could be laziness, but I don't have a whole lot of patience. I have tons of patience for ignorance. I don't have a ton of patience for stupidity.
I was going to say, I have this strange respect for the people that do not upgrade to modern technology, because they're like, I know I'm either not going to do it or I'm not going to understand it. So I'm just going to go with what I know and just be the expert in what I know.
Right.
So almost like I'm going to stay in my lane type mentality. You know what I mean? For technology.
Yeah. I mean, if they're honest about it, you can have a respect that doesn't always eliminate the frustration if you have to work with them. So
that's true.
What's funny, we have text message campaigns going out, and obviously we market to roofing companies. And the message was like, it was an intro to like digital marketing, just a friendly message, how are things going? And somebody responded, we don't market that way. And I was like, so how do you market? Then that's what I responded with. And they never replied, because I'm like, if you're not doing any of those things, then tell me what you're doing. I'm just curious. I want to know. Are you like, is it an older person who's like, they're fine with the yellow pages? So what's crazy though, like people have been in business for a long time. So Mark is a good example. We talked about Mark on the last podcast too. He still has, I want to say, a yellow page ad because he's been in business for 20 years. So he still has it. And over the years, it's just gotten cheaper. So he's like, why not? People call me from it. So I'll just keep doing it since I've always done it. But he does all the digital stuff too. He still has he's the guy who has the peel off magnets on the front of the yellow page, like on the front of the yellow pages. So if you go into like a random store in Virginia Beach and there's a stack of yellow pages, because now they're free, you just pick them up, somewhere. They have his magnets on them. He goes, "Do you know how many calls I get from these still?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, if it's part of your marketing budget, keep doing it."
Go Mark.
So that's funny. It's still a thing. But
have you guys seen the it's a video. I don't know if it's necessarily a TikTok. It's a video circulating on social media, and it's this guy who's teaching his grandma how to use her Roku TV. And he's like, this is Netflix, this is Hulu, this is Disney Plus. These are all separate software. Like he's like, try it. This is your home screen, and these are all called apps. None of them are in the same app. They're all separate apps. If you want to watch this, and he's like going through this whole thing, the grandma, and he's like, okay, now repeat that back to me. And the grandma's just sitting in the chair, so excited, like ready to learn.
We're gonna have to do that with our in-laws pretty soon because I think their cable has gotten astronomically high. So they're like, we just want to watch what all you guys are watching. So step 1, you're gonna have to get internet to the house. Step 2, then we'll come over and install a Roku TV. So that's funny.
Anyway, if you want to hear a topic, if you want advice, if you want to just chat and say hi, you could always message us on Instagram at F__K your pod, or you can always email me at Emma@99creatives or Katy
at Katy@99creatives.
Thank you, Crystal, for being a guest. We really appreciate it. This was I think it was a good episode. I think
it's a great episode.
It's going to be very informational. But where can people find you, Crystal?
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I can be found at crystaldanderson.com, and it's CRY for Crystal. So crystaldanderson.com.
Awesome.
And pretty soon on YouTube.
And on YouTube. Yeah.
You're going on YouTube? That's exciting.
Pretty soon on YouTube.
Ooh, what kind of content are you putting out?
So I'll be putting out content in regards to like similar to what we talked about today, which is how to take your business to the next level from the entrepreneurial journey, or to find a way that you can exit your business with grace.
Amazing.
I love it.
Well, thank you again, Crystal. And for those listening, don't forget to do the damn thing. Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Adios.
Bye.